Hey, on my Travel One podcast, I'm lucky to have Danielle Grant. How are you today, Danielle?
I'm good, Pete. How are you?
Doing excellent. I really appreciate the time.
Good.
Danielle is a mentor, a mindset mentor, a podcaster, a speaker, and I like your last little self-announcement of Spiritual Gangster.
Thank you.
Kind of digging that. Give us a little background about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So a little bit of background on me is I'm a corporate employee. I was a corporate employee of 10 years. And about 3 years ago, I lost my job in the corporate world, which allowed me to take a look at the online space. And through that time, I ended up creating my personal development company, Your Mindset Mentor. And one of the reasons why I created that personal development company is because my personal experience, my personal life journey allowed me at 15 to really start to understand mindset when I found myself in the psychiatric ward after wanting to take my life. And that was my first kind of exposure to mindset work. And it's been a personal journey over the last 18 years. And now I'm blessed that I get to share it as my business and help people transform their mindset with new knowledge and wisdom.
One of the things and we can definitely talk about in a little bit, but I really like to talk to you about the Buddhism part. Because I have a couple of friends that are getting into Buddhism or have been. And it's interesting that it does kind of change your mindset, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? I actually found Buddhism because I was seeking more understanding of attachment to thought. And I recognized that the Buddhist way and the Buddhist philosophy was the deepest understanding of that particular thing within mindset.
I know zero about Buddhism. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a religion or is it just more of a way of thinking? Or and some people would say it's both.
Yeah, you know what? It's not both. Over the last couple thousand years, as religion as a whole has become more predominant, Buddhism has been put into the religious category. But as you start to do a reading and learn more about the truth and the foundation of Buddhism, it's not a religion. It is strictly a way of life. And really, it's one person's understanding of life. But when you look through that perspective, there's a lot of truth to it and a lot of minimalism and simplicity to it. So it actually is a way of life. It's not a religion.
Well, I think that the ism is where people lump it into the religion part. Buddhism,
yeah, totally.
Catholicism, I don't know. It's just kind of cool that I, some very cool people that I know, you now being one of them, use Buddhism as a way of thinking. So I'll have to do more research now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, at the core of Buddhism, at the foundation of that is mindset, right? Is attachment to thought, and that's how we perceive our life through those attachments.
What kind of corporate work were you doing? Was it all office work?
It was all office work. I primarily worked in sales and marketing and the car industry.
Oh, that can definitely chew you up.
The car industry?
Yeah. My sister worked for a large car manufacturer. And so did my in-laws did too. They worked for GM back in Detroit. But that was back in the day. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, I like hearing where you came from because, I've started my podcast. I still have my day job. And I'm doing the podcast. And you kind of went the same route where, you might not want to, but you left the corporate world and now you're doing this. How big of a change has that been for you?
You know what? I want to say it was a big change, but the reality of it was I was ready for that change about a year and a half before it happened. And I pretty much manifested that being let go from my corporate job into my reality. The change itself wasn't difficult because, like I said, I was ready. What became difficult was stepping into entrepreneurship and thinking that my corporate life would correlate to that, when in reality, it was maybe like 25% of my corporate experience would help me in entrepreneurship. And that's when it became difficult, was understanding I had to develop an entrepreneurship mindset in order to step into this place. And that's what was difficult.
Well, you're right. I guess I've always I think it's just my dad. I've always been somewhat entrepreneurial, even though I've had corporate jobs. So I don't know. Because I think what you're doing and what you went through is going to be happening a lot to a lot of people around the world after coming out of this lockdown, and all of a sudden their job's gone. So it's going to be interesting to see how people kind of reassess their lives and their careers when they have.
Yeah, and I think now more than ever, people have the opportunity. I mean, that's how I ended up here. Is I was realizing before I lost my corporate job that people were actually leveraging the online space to make some legitimate money doing many different things. And I started with an e-commerce store, moving into the personal development company. But people need to really understand right now that we live in a completely different time. And there's a lot of online jobs, there's a lot of virtual jobs, but there's also a very big opportunity for people to leverage the online space if they wanted to. And I don't think that was as real as it was even 5 years ago.
No. Yeah, because the last, and maybe it was, but I think it's just more so now. Because the last shutdown was 2010, 2009. The last economic downturn, at least here in the States. And it was just horrifically bad. But, the internet was there and all that. YouTube was just getting started. It's kind of weird to think back that far.
It is, isn't it? Just think that YouTube was just starting then.
So because, the things for my podcast, most of what I've learned was either on a Google search or on YouTube. As far as, how to record, how to edit, what kind of mic to use, all that kind of stuff. 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't do that. And now it's there for you.
Totally. Yeah, and even, I've been doing this now, it'll be 3 years in January with this specific business. And even in the 3 years since I started, a lot of the outsourcing work has become extremely cheap compared to what it was 3 years ago. So it's amazing how fast things change in the online space. It's quite rapid, actually, which also just speaks volumes to how fast someone can create a successful business online as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, you've got some things. How much traveling have you done for mindset coaching or mentoring? Because I've seen some of your trips.
Yeah, so I take my business on the road. So I'm not location-based. I'm completely online. So basically, one of the cool things I've realized that's come out of creating this and also having this desire to personally travel is how motivated and inspiring it is for people to watch me be able to fulfill my own personal desire to travel while working and actually have that online business. But I'm not working to travel. I still have a home base, but that it can be done and that I get to enjoy. For the last 2 months, not that it was a big travel, but for the last 2 months, I took off to go paragliding just locally here because we can't really travel much with COVID.
Yeah.
And I worked from there, but also while I was there, I was coaching there, and the people around me start to ask, like, what do you do for work? And so I find whenever I travel, it's really for me, but the impact I have on the locals that are around me is so significant because people are fascinated by the fact of what I do and how I coach, and then they become curious. So really, while I travel personally, I'm always working on my business.
That's so interesting because I get similar response. Like, my day job is selling Western clothing. And I tell people, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then, but if I tell them, I'm also doing a podcast, and they're like, oh, how's that? How'd you get started with that? And all of a sudden that really sparks interest. And they're like, well, how did you get started? I'm like, I don't know. I just started calling people and they said yes. It's Isn't
that the truth? That is how you just get started in podcasting.
Yeah, it's literally, it was, all of a sudden it gave me an excuse, as I like to say, to reach out to people I'd always want to talk to. So.
Yeah, and that's a, classic thing that I talk about all the time is people have a distorted perception around asking because we come out of a society that really trains us not to ask. When we're on a road trip with our parents, don't ask when we get there. When we're in class, don't ask to go pee. So we're programmed not to ask questions. And people look at doing something like podcasting as this big monumental thing. But at the end of the day, all it comes down to is you being willing to ask them the question. And no one ever does it. So the chances of someone saying yes are really high. And it is that simple if you can move through that mental perception that we hold to be true.
And I think I also had some fortunate and some luck, by asking. And some people that I approached that I would never have thought said yes, actually said yes. So
yeah.
So it just gave me that confidence.
Like that. That's the coolest part. Yeah.
Yeah, it just gave me the confidence to go, oh, well, if he said yes, maybe she'll say yes. Oh my God, she said yes.
That's cool.
So.
Yeah.
So where do you see your mindset mentoring taking you? Like in 5 years, do you have a plan out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. So my real big vision is to impact millions of entrepreneurs in their mindset. And in the next 5 years, I really, actually right before COVID happened, I had already been with a speaking coach to get me on stages around the world to really share my message of mindset with entrepreneurs. Due to COVID, that didn't happen, but that's still something that I plan on doing. And it's always been the intention was to travel the world and speak on stages and share this message of mindset. And that is where I'll be in 5 years. And now that I'm also a paragliding pilot, I get to speak around the world, but also fly around the world at the same time. So for a personal goal, that's a big thing for me. And from a business goal, I'm just really excited to share this message of mindset with the world on stages.
That is so cool. I mean, that's just
a
great way to incorporate, an outside passion into your job and work it all together. It's awesome.
Yeah, that just happened this summer for me. I didn't know I wanted to become a paragliding pilot until I did it. And now I realize why I did, so I can fly while I speak at the same time. It's pretty cool how it all comes together.
That's awesome. I don't know if I'd want to do that. I like doing it once, but I don't know. Well,
it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. What I like to, and I'll have to be honest with I've watched some of your videos and some of your content. Kind of, if you could explain how you are different and how you get into more of the subconscious of mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I guess how I'm different. I'm a real big practice what you preach, and anything that I put out there in terms of value or content or ask my clients to do, I myself am always doing. So I think what makes me really different is that I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to show when I'm struggling, where lots of other people in leadership roles maybe kind of wear a mask. I'm quite blunt. I'm willing to share my own personal experiences as vulnerably as possible. And a lot of people resonate with that. They're grateful to have content like that that's kind of just straight to the point. In terms of subconscious, though, I mean, subconscious is an area that a lot of people don't understand. And the subconscious is really the recording system of our lives. And every experience that we've ever had since we were born, and if you believe in previous lifetimes, lives within our subconscious mind. And everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, every action that we take first is formulated through our subconscious mind. And so it's really important that people become aware to what that is and that it's something that is real to their life. And anytime where we find ourselves in a place we don't want to be in, we typically need to look at what our thought process is around that subject. And that is always found in our subconscious mind. When we begin to do work in our subconscious mind, we really begin to influence our belief systems and what we constantly hold to be true within that recording system. And that's where transformation and change is actually found, is the transformation of our subconscious beliefs.
Yeah, that when I heard you say that, I'm like, that totally makes sense to me.
Perfect.
All your experiences, previous experiences are put in there. They're in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, all the time people are, why does this keep happening to me? Or I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, all it is a belief system that you're believing to be true that you can change at any given moment. And once you change that belief system, you're now operating from the new belief system. And when you think about the power in that, you think about why you can create your reality and why we actually do create our reality. It's quite powerful.
Well, I know you have several different programs. What do you suggest, or what's the best for the most people? How are you reaching more people right now? Because I mean, you have the podcast, and then you also do your coaching. Yeah.
So I have my podcast. I have partnerships with quite a few other entrepreneurs that call me in and kind of to do mindset work within their programs. I also run masterminds for high-level entrepreneurs, so I have access to all of those networks as well. So really JV partners. And then just showing up, the social networks are a beautiful thing, and the algorithms actually work in your favor if you produce content that people want. And so LinkedIn actually kind of self-selects the people that need my content and shows it to them. And so that's how I find a lot of people as well.
Yeah, a lot of people were surprised because LinkedIn's been phenomenal for my podcast growth. And there's a lot of business people that are like, oh, really? I have like I just talked to a guy this weekend at my niece's wedding, and he's like, "Oh, I only have like 180 contacts," and I'm like, "Yeah, I've got over 10,000." He's like, "What?"
Yeah, it's a really good platform. I highly recommend anyone to get on it, and anyone who isn't seeing what's going on there right now, you're missing the boat.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that guy got the message, because I didn't want to say that to him, but I'm like, because he was trying to grow his business, and I'm like, yeah, you might want to get more involved with that. So, because I tell people it's like Facebook, but for business people, without the dogs and the cats and the cute kid pictures. You know,
that's the truth. You know, I started on Facebook and Instagram with my businesses, and I slowly moved to only focusing on LinkedIn, because the type of people I want to work with, they're looking for content on LinkedIn. They're not looking for that kind of content on Facebook or Instagram. So it also depends on where your audience is. But LinkedIn is a little bit underground right now and really has the ability to expedite your reach if you put out consistent content, for sure.
Okay. What kind of people do you find are your typical customers or your typical, students?
Yeah. You know, it's a little bit of everything. But the primary people that I work with in my signature program, Alignment 2020, and in my one-on-one coaching, I typically work with the entrepreneurs that have the 6-7-figure businesses that are trying to scale into the next either 7-figure, 8-figure, but are holding their companies back just because of their own internal belief systems. So I really work with the CEO or the founder to correct their own internal systems and stories that they believe. And that allows them to scale and move through and create the team that they need to get the success that they want. But that being said, a lot of people come into my world of all walks of life, because mindset is open for everyone, and people are becoming so curious into entrepreneurship that I have literally everyone possible in my community.
Is there any, I guess, I've never talked to anybody that's a mindset coach, so I'm kind of shooting questions are coming into my head real quick. You know, is there any cross, like because you're connect? Is there any cross promotion in that sense? I don't know. I'm not saying this right, but like if you work with a successful guy that has a computer software company, and you're mentoring him, mm-hmm. and then you're mentoring mm-hmm. an advertising company, do you ever merge those two together, or do they ever get a chance? Yeah.
I always try to keep my community connected. If I see an opportunity for one of my clients to connect with another one of my clients, I will absolutely connect them. And in fact, anyone who comes through any of my masterminds are connected with those people individually. And there's a lot of healthy, strong business relationships that come out of that community.
Well, it seems like it makes sense to me. That's why I'm asking, because if I'm a CEO of an advertising company and I'm using your services to better myself, I'd want to also work with other people that want to better themselves. So you kind of would all be on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of actually, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't think about that. I was just talking to someone today who said she found a potential client through one of the masterminds she's in. And it just reminded me how many people don't think about that being a lead generation, as being in a community or in a program with other people for the same reason. There's probably a potential client in there because there's so much like-minded people in that community.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. So that's an added benefit without even trying to be.
Totally, yeah.
What makes you successful?
I think that's such a loaded question, because I think success is subjective for everyone. You know, like, what is success? What allows me to feel like I'm achieving my definition of success?
Yeah.
And the irony of this is it's kind of just come to a head within the last week, actually, is when I built my business after I got let go from the corporate world, the number one thing I was seeking was freedom. And it was freedom of time, freedom to control my schedule, and freedom to do whatever I wanted, because I had financial abundance. And so that's always been the number one thing that I was seeking. And that was kind of my determining factor of success, that once I had the ability to have the money, the time, and the calendar to do whatever I wanted in my personal life, I've achieved, a level of success. And this summer I was able to go from working 7 days a week for the last 2.5 years to working 2 days a week and investing in becoming a paragliding pilot for myself, which was, a worthwhile investment. And to me, that was the first time I had, as a new entrepreneur, kind of come into this feeling of success of like, wow, I actually was able to attain that level of freedom that I set out to seek. I'm feeling like I've achieved a level of success within my business. So that's how I determine that. And right now, specifically that place, and it's a pretty cool feeling.
That's got to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You're so online. Did you have an online background, or how did you learn how to do all this? With the websites and the podcasts and everything.
Yeah, I love that question because prior to starting my business, I actually was off any social networks or online space for 2.5 years prior. And so when I got interested in doing online, I had to really overcome that because I had written it out of my life. I had to create that habit. And I took a lot of online courses. I hired coaches. I did make investments in myself at the beginning that could help me learn the information I didn't know.
Yeah.
And now I just have healthy boundaries around how much I'm on the social networks because it's not something as someone in mindset and who preaches mindfulness I'm really interested in. I don't really want to sit there and scroll, but it is a part of my business and it's important part of my business. So I have boundaries around it, but I definitely hired coaches and I took online programs to teach me how to do that.
I'm having that, I'll call them discussions right now with my wife because I'm trying to only go on social media when I'm posting things. So I'm not spending, I try not to get wrapped up in the K-holes of, oh, look at this video and that takes you to that video. But because my wife's like, let's just get off social media. I'm like, well, I have to be on somewhat just to keep my podcast going. And so it's that balance,
Yeah, but here's the real question. The question becomes why do I still feel the need to have to check social media?
Yeah.
Right? Because you can have 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day to do your podcast stuff and that be it. And be totally fine with that and still move your podcast forward. The question becomes, why do I feel like I need to keep checking it? What do I feel like I'm missing? That's the thing that you want to look into. And same with your wife. Like, it's not cutting it out cold turkey. It's why do you feel like I don't want to? Why do you feel like we shouldn't be on the social networks? What's the real thing that we're trying to not be in, which is typically scrolling and just wasting your time in other people's lives, right?
Yeah. Well, and
then the question becomes why.
Well, and for us right now down here in the States, we got about 30 more days of political overload before the election. So
yeah.
Because everyone's, my wife got unfriended today. It's just like, geez.
That's the thing, though. I mean, is what shows up on Facebook really going to be the thing that determines your political decision on your vote? Probably not on social media. So. You would maybe, that's my point, right? So that's the thing. Then just get off social media because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, and that's, but then the thing I think social media, the crutch it is for people is to a certain extent, it makes everyone feel like they have a voice. 15, 20 years ago, I'm in my 50s. So when I was growing up, it was inconceivable to talk to the president of the United States or a senator or you were like, that's not going to happen. But now with Twitter, you feel like, I'm going to write the president a note right now and he's going to read it at some point and he's going to understand how I feel, Yeah. I think it just gives people the belief that they're finally being heard and everyone's opinion is super better than everybody else's. So.
Yeah, I think that I agree. I think the other side to that, though, is the paradigm of that you create a false reality for yourself and you're creating these false ideas of what your life is or that you're being heard, but really you're not being heard. And so you still have that internal demon of not feeling like you're heard, even though you feel like you are because you're leveraging social media. The internal problem is still there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because, yeah.
That's the mindset in me anyways.
No, I know. Do you find that because of what you do now, does it just superimpose on everything you do in life? You're a mindset coach. If you were a salesperson for a car product, you could go to work, do that, come home and go, oh, now I'm going to be a paragliding. But now you're a mindset coach. Does it just bleed into everything?
I mean, it does bleed into everything, but at the root of mindset, it's allowing yourself to see through different perspectives and to see a different reality. And so as much as mindset bleeds into my life, mindset has allowed me to escape the societal perceptions and patterns that most people live within. And so as much as you would think it'd always be about mindset, it's very little about mindset once you're in it, because you've created a different paradigm to live within, that you're not constantly thinking about, those things, or you're dealing with your shit. So you're just always in this mindset mode.
Do you think
Does that make sense?
Yeah. The reason I ask is, my brain almost never turns off. My wife's like, "Oh, what's on your to-do list?" I'm like, "Give me a book," because I've just got a lot of things I got to get done. But I don't mind it because that's just the way it is. And some of it's work, some of it's podcast, some of it's my kids, some of it's this and that. But kind of like for you, your mindset mentoring is not so much just your 9 to 5 job. It's just kind of always there, I would think.
Yeah. What it really comes down to is that I live in a much less stressful environment, because when a stressful situation comes or thought comes, it just naturally corrects itself, or I look at it through a different lens, that I find I don't really live in an anxious, depressed, stressed out state anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think meditation helps with that?
100%. That's one of if there's 3 things I would tell people to do, meditation is one of them. And in fact, I host a week daily meditation practice with a live meditation on Wednesdays. Meditation will radically transform anybody's life.
Why do you think that is?
Because when you look into meditation at the root of it, it's allowing you to become present to your thoughts, to your non-human self, to your conscious self, to your subconscious mind. When we are not with our eyes closed in a state that's just listening, we're always distracted by external factors. And so when you're you can do open eye meditation as well, but most people think closed eye meditation. It allows you the closest experience to what you're actually listening to and hearing and attached to in your mental mind. Whereas there's nothing else that allows you that break to really listen to that space without having external distraction. And when you become aware to what those thoughts are and what you're actually listening to, you now have the ability to look at them differently, and then you have the ability to do work into them. The point of meditation is not to have a silent mind at the beginning. It's the intention near the end to be able to have no attachment to thought. But when you're beginning, and for some people it's years, your mind never shuts off because you have so much mental attachment that you haven't worked through. That when people sit to meditate, they're like, I can't turn my brain off. Well, no shit, you haven't dealt with anything. As soon as you start listening to it, instead of trying to suppress it and trying to think like you have a silent mind, you really start to hear the stories that you're believing to be true. And that's the most powerful place we can be in as human beings to offer change in our mindset.
That's a lot to unpack. Wow. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
I mean, meditation isn't just listening to your thoughts. There's visualization meditation, leveraging law of attraction. A lot of my business ideas come to me through a meditative state where I'm not consciously attached. I can be in a silent meditation, and then I'll hear business ideas come to me. So there's many different ways that meditation can play roles in our life. It's not the traditional way that most people think.
What do you think the misconceptions are behind meditation? I think it's becoming less and less.
But it's supposed to be silent. That from day one, you're supposed to have no thoughts, and you're supposed to just be in this absolute silent, blissful, meditative state. That's the number one misconception that people have about meditation.
What's the reality? That it's okay?
The reality is that until you work through your attachment to thought, how can your mind be quiet? It's impossible. It cannot be.
So I'm thinking through this, Danielle.
Yeah, you think ahead. You go right ahead. I'll answer any questions you have.
Do is it the chicken or the egg? Are you working through things at the same time you're meditating, and then they kind of work together? Or do you try and work through the mindset and then start meditating, or do you meditate first and then
It's all intertwined into one another. To separate them would almost create more for the mindset to think about. The reality of it is a lot of times I'll talk about something and then I'll be like, why am I struggling to put that piece of content out? What's holding me back from doing that? And then I'll identify that there's a mental block. Once I've identified what that story is, I'll typically go into a silent meditative state with no music, just with my eyes closed, and just become very curious to what that thought is, and to decide in that meditative state that I want to look at it differently. And then I'll consciously produce a new thought about putting that piece of content out, and continually repeat that through that meditative state. Over time, and over a short period of time, I can reprogram my subconscious mind that way. So it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
And that's why people need to check out your website and everything.
I'm more so on LinkedIn. I talk about the meditation, but this is all things that people don't think about. People don't think that meditation is a tool that can radically transform their life. They just think it's something that reduces stress in people's lives.
Well, and that, for me, being on the people I'm talking to on my podcast, many are like you that are using meditation. They're using next level stuff that, at least when I grew up, meditation was for the hippies. It was, Yep. It was yoga people and this and that. It's funny because my wife's a Pilates instructor and our neighbor's a yoga teacher, but just growing up, I mean, my parents were from the Midwest, and just, you wake up, go to work hard, and you'll be fine. It was like, you don't complain, don't talk about your problems. I don't want to hear them. And you know what I mean? It was just, that was the Midwest way of thinking, I guess, especially for some.
I don't even think that's Midwest. I think that's the North America way. I mean, even up here, like, it was the same thing. You didn't learn about meditation in school. I only learned about meditation because I had a personal depression journey that sent me down that path. But until then, I never looked at meditation as being something that could help me in a personal journey of my life. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think just in general, being an entrepreneur or working hard, I don't know. I have a neighbor. He's a next neighbor now, but he literally was an 18-year-old kid when he moved in, never had a job, and he was an influencer. He was a social media influencer who did makeup tutorials on himself. And I'm like, the guy had made 6 figures putting makeup on himself, and his boyfriend would edit the videos and do the 1-minute videos and all. I'm like, hold on, what? We're in a different world now. It's like,
we're in a totally different world. Totally. And if anyone thinks that we're still living in the old way, they're holding themselves back, because so much has changed.
Well, yeah, and I talked to one of the people I work with back in Denver, and they're like, well, they don't make that much money, do they? And I go, oh, yeah. I told them roughly what he made, and I'm like, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I know. You've been working hard for 40 years, sitting in your cubicle, punching numbers and computers. This 18-year-old kid's making 3 times what you make, and he's never had a job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what turned me onto the online space, when I was seeing all these young kids that were in their early 20s, that same thing, had no job and were making 6 figures. And I was like, wow, if they are doing that, why can't I do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And so everyone's got to find their own space, and don't. I always tell people, I go, I listened to a lot of Gary Vee when I first started, and he always said, use your experience, use what you got. The young people have the young people have they don't know any better, so they just do it because they think they can, and the old people should use their experience. So, kind of what I do with the podcast. Yeah, I leveraged my experience of mindset more than anything to build this business. I'm having a lot of discussions with a lot of my store owners for my day job, trying to get them more into the online space. Why do you think it is so difficult for people to think outside the box?
That's ego driven. Those kind of belief systems and thoughts live in our ego mind. And unless someone has any, again, back to the subconscious mind, unless that individual has consistent experiences written in their subconscious mind of healthy change, which most people don't. Anytime change is presented to people, their thought goes first through the subconscious, which typically doesn't have any powerful change experience in it, and then filters back through the ego of doubt. And immediately people's mindsets turn off to even listening to what that other person has to say, because their subconscious belief system actually doesn't warrant change. So even if you're like, yeah, just check it out, they typically won't even go check it out, because their actual internal belief system doesn't believe that there's something better out there for them.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people that you meet that are like that are like, hey, I'm not going online, or it's not for me, or whatever. They're holding on to some story in their life that has shown them why change is not good.
Yeah, but if they don't change, they're going to go out of business.
Yeah, that's the problem. Their mindset, they don't understand that that's their belief that's holding them stuck.
Yeah. It's sad in some ways. I mean, I literally have some store owners that are going to go out of business because they never embraced even, not that you have to sell your products online, but they don't even embrace a presence online. So they're like, I've never been online before. It's like, yeah, but do you still advertise in the yellow pages? It's like,
yeah. A good question to ask those people is like, where in your life were you shown that change is not healthy? And they would stop dead in their tracks and be like, what? And then they'll probably produce a story, some random story when they were a kid. And sometimes that can actually be the trigger for them to consciously be like, oh shit, I need to look at this differently.
Or I could just send them to your website.
Yeah, that too. I do work with a specific type of entrepreneur, though. People are typically a little bit more mindset awoke by the time I work with them, but absolutely. On my podcast, there's lots of information there.
Well, I joke because if they're willing to talk to someone like you, they're probably willing to already, embrace.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know what you're saying. So,
yeah.
I don't know. What do you have coming up? What's the rest of the year look like for you?
Yeah, so the rest of the year I'm just really focusing. I opened my signature program, like I said, Alignment 2020 3 times a year. So we just have the last one for 2020 starting in the middle of this month. And then basically just focusing on continuing to enroll people into my week daily meditations, which is a free experience for anybody, and just really trying to help people develop that for themselves till the end of this year. What I got going on.
Wow. I'm out selling summer 2021 products right now and looking for the future. Or it's so weird because I don't think people have understood that, how much the lockdown is going to affect everything. So.
Yeah. I don't think the bubble hasn't burst yet for them to realize it.
I mean, we're not having, like Las Vegas. We work at the rodeo every year. That's the world championship in Las Vegas. It's the largest income convention for the city of Las Vegas, and they canceled it. They've canceled everything. I mean, tens of millions of dollars. I mean, if not more. I don't even know. So, the people are like, oh, goodbye. But, when they ask for the raise, everyone's going to say, I don't know. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at the bottom yet.
I think once people realize how much money has been lost over COVID, that's when it will be at the bottom. I don't think there's enough even statistics on that number yet. People are still losing money.
Yeah, they're still out of work, for us, I'm in Southern California, and Disney just fired 28,000 employees. It's like, because they were technically furloughed, which just means they were laid off. But now that the stimulus isn't going through, and Disneyland's still not open, and there's no open date for Disneyland, they finally had to fire those people. So those people now are out looking for work. Just 28,000 people.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that, and this is the mindset part of me, obviously, like I said, it bleeds into my life this way, is when something like that happens, people want to get so discouraged and think their life is over. But to the whole point of this conversation we've had, people need to start looking at what else is out there instead of going home saying, you know, woe is me, or I've lost my job, or I can't believe this has happened.
Yep.
It should be a question of, okay, what can I do and how can I work for myself? Because that question is so much more available than it's ever been. And instead of people looking at it like, woe is me, I'm looking at it like, wow, hopefully out of that 28,000 people, there's some people who become their own bosses that make an impact in the world. And it never would have happened if they didn't get let go from Disney, right?
Totally agree. I 100% agree with you. But, you know, when the economy crashed in 2008, 2009, you know, I was not happy. I was, you know, and my career took a completely different change, and now I'm in the best place I've ever been at. So if the economy didn't crash back then, I wouldn't be at where I'm at now, which is so much better.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, I even think about me when I was let go from my last corporate job. You know, that was the only time I'd been let go from a job. Not the only time I'd been let go from jobs before that, but the only time I'd been let go where I felt so okay with being let go. And I think about these people that are losing their jobs, and I just think about the mindset that one can take. And me personally, that one mindset has literally changed my whole entire life by being willing to not cry about losing a job and just being willing to take control of something that I wanted.
Yeah, I think hopefully with social media and the internet, stories like yours and some of the other entrepreneurs I've talked to get out there, and people don't, you know, bounce back even faster than they did in 2008, 2009. You know, because they see examples like you going, okay, you know, let me change my mindset. Let me see. Yeah, I lost that. I hated that job anyways. Let me see what else is out there for me. So. Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, I got neighbors that are...
Don't hold respect. Yep.
Well, I mean, you know, I have a young couple that they both fly for Delta. And, you know, now they're working, I think, 1 day a week, you know, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives in their late 20s. So, but it's made them rethink, you know, they're changing their mindset because they're forced to. Yeah,
I think everyone's being forced to change their mindsets, ironically enough, especially during COVID. There was a check-in period for everybody, not just on, you know, corporate world and career, but I think a lot of people had some moments of reflection over the last few months that have been very healthy for our life and world peace moving forward.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, if we can just get to the next 28 days down here with the election, we'll be fine.
Yeah, you know, I have to admit, as a Canadian, we always kind of just become very quiet around this time period every 4 years when the States goes into an election, and we just watch what happens as the neighbors. I'm trying to just watch too. I'm trying to. It's so nutty. It's like you get into conversations with people that you've never thought would happen. It's just weird. I don't know. Yeah.
Why. I don't know why it's the end all to be all, but it has become that. It's just, you know, I think for us in the States, it's the next Super Bowl or World Series. It's just another event that everyone can get hyped up about, and you pick a side, and you're either for the Chargers or the Packers, you know. And if you like the Packers, you don't like the Bears. So I think I don't know.
It's true, but unfortunately, you don't have the best two at the top.
Well, we got who they've stuck us with. You know, I haven't met anybody.
Sending all of my good vibes down to you guys.
Say that again?
I said sending all the good vibes down to you guys.
Yeah, we just need a good 30 days. That's all we need. Just get through it.
Yeah. I always try not to talk about politics, but it always just comes up, though.
No, you know, but you know, to me, it's the mindset, right? Because I had this talk in 2016. Both my daughters were in college, and college is a liberal staunch. It's what they are. And so when Trump got elected, my daughters are calling, going, "Hey, you know, they're rioting. They're going to boycott, and they're going to, you know, skip classes." And I'm like, whoa. One, you're going to class tomorrow because I'm paying for it. So I don't care who the president is. As long as I'm paying for your school, you're going. I don't want to hear that. I go, look, you'll be fine. I've been through a few of these now. you'll be fine. People are going to wake up and go to work tomorrow, no matter who becomes president. So, I don't know.
That's crazy. That's crazy that that's even a conversation you're having with your kids.
I had to because
Like,
it was like
yeah.
it was midnight, and they're like, they're talking about rioting and we got to be safe and stay indoors, and I'm like, because Trump got elected? What the fuck? Hold on. That means they don't have jobs, honey. Because you know what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm going to wake up and go to work.
That's the kind of headline that goes around the world, and people then start to have weird ideas of the Americans.
Yeah, well, yeah. But, if your daughter calls you and she's saying they're rioting on their campus, and you're like, what? What? So you...
well, we shall see in a couple days.
So you kids skipping class is going to do what? Show people that you're unhappy with who voted? You probably didn't even vote.
Yeah, that's the thing. You probably didn't even vote.
Statistically, that's the worst group. 18 to 24, it's like 14% or 15% actually show up to vote. But yet, they're the ones that complain the most. Yeah, for any of you
young kids listening out there, get your butt to the voting polls.
Just vote. And then when it's when it's done, you did your job and move on and go, wake up the next day. So
yeah.
I'm glad you don't have to worry about that. You just have your prime minister to worry about.
Oh, we have just as crazy as stuff up here, trust me.
Yeah.
Just as nuts up here. It just looks a little bit more mellow.
It just appears that way.
It does.
Well, that's why I always tell people, I go, there are more people in California than the entire country of Canada.
Yeah.
There's
that's crazy to me, actually, when people say that.
It's almost 40 million people in California alone. It's like...
Yeah, I think we have 41 million in Canada or something?
I think you're around 36.
I don't even think that much. Yeah.
Yeah, you're around 36.
No complaints up here from the fellow Canadian. We like our space. It's good.
You got a lot of it once you go a little north.
Yeah, we definitely do. Even north, we're pretty spread out. Our cities are pretty mellow. I think Toronto's our biggest city that we have, right?
That's the only Canadian city I've ever been to. I worked for a company that was based in Toronto. So I used to go up there for general managers meetings.
Yeah. It's our mini New York up there.
It's gorgeous, though. That city is so
pretty. Beautiful.
It's so clean. That's between Tokyo and Toronto. And then I look at those cities, and then you come to LA and you're like, ugh. Trash everywhere. People don't clean up after themselves. It's just like, oh man. Anyways.
Yeah, that's also a real thing in life.
Yeah. Yes. Make your own bed, right? So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, what's the best way for my listeners to get a hold of you, see what you got going on? What if they're not on LinkedIn? So.
Yeah, the best way would probably be to head to my website, yourmindsetmentor.com. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, obviously just Danielle Grant, or just shoot me an email and say, what's up, Danielle at yourmindsetmentor.com, or you can head over to the mindvibe.show, which is my podcast, which I release episodes every Tuesday.
I'll make sure to include the links on my website. So if the listeners want to check it out, they just go to my website and then hit the links, and I'll make sure it's as easy as possible.
Cool. Thanks, Pete. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, we might have to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to connect more and talk a little bit deeper mindset stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to check out the meditation stuff. I think that's something I got to get into.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone wants to register for that, it's just yourmindsetmentor.com/meditation-mindset, and you can enroll and it's free.
Yeah, and then you have a free ebook I'm going to check out as well.
Yeah, when you enroll for the meditation, you'll get the ebook there with that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I appreciate the time, Danielle, and we will stay in touch.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay,
have
Danielle.
a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.